intention. I wanted to externalize my thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts yesterday. Um, there is a generation of people being created currently. We're all a part of it, each of us. We're all changing and gradually adapting to the environment. Um, and I think there's an externalization with our identity that is shaping around things we're not creating, things we ourselves are not a part of. We're all, I guess, we're all like pushed. Some of us identify with this, or you know, recognize it, but we're all pushed towards this passive viewership, and our time is valuable to us in the sense of, am I doing this to get high? Am I doing this to make money? Am I doing this for like status, gain, more attention on me? And obviously, it's paradoxical. There's two sides of these people. Oh, I don't do this for that. But regardless, we're surrounded in an environment that sort of like hijacks um, that thing, that ability, because we cannot identify with it. We're still surrounded by it. I'm seeing a lot of contemplation over the new Christopher Nolan movie, the Odyssey, the readaptation of the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. Right, Homer wrote that, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If not, oh well. But people are a lot of people are angry about the direction of the movie, how it wasn't properly conveyed. And my thought was, I think our world views itself as the end point of all human civilization, of all human expression, and that all these things are deeply embedded in us, that we in us have all of culture behind us. And as I, grow older and experience more things, I'm realizing that the only true thing about reality, about this world, is the moment, the present moment, the direct experiencing it. Everything else is in this between state of like being true and being real. Because something can be true but not necessarily be real. And obviously you can't speak for all perspectives when you speak out of your mouth. You have to generalize in a sense. And I think this is where our language fails us because we our history is not necessarily embedded in us, but versions of history are accessible to us. Some are more you know accessible than others, or some are more forced upon us, right? But what I'm noticing is that where we are is the only place that truly exists in the knowing, the being of an experience. Anything else, describing an event, expressing yourself about a past event, or expressing yourself through, the focus on future, right? Expression in general has direction to it. Usually, obviously, there's circumstances you can't you can't be specific in every conversation, and so a generalization forms of, once again, you cannot identify with something, but you can still be surrounded by it. Does that, does that? I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Come on. And I guess where I am now, right here, right now, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, 5, 5, 5. Um, it was for 5, 5, 5. It was 5:55 a.m. By the way. But where I am now, in my this point of being, and this point of thought, it's not that I think when you come to this realization of um, there's so many words for it. I'm not saying I'm identifying with enlightenment, but I'm just saying there's so many words for what I think. First of all, for what I think is happening, right? There's so many forms of expression of people who felt the need to externalize this thought or this feeling inside them, and basically, the world is full of a collective or a collection of these artifacts inside humans and inside books and inside our expression of, like, unlocking inner paths. The labyrinth inside your head evolves. And back to, like, the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, right? Yeah. Um, that was directed by Christopher Nolan. The readaptation with the notion of these, a lot of people hating that it wasn't conveyed properly. I think just have a genuine disregard for the environment they're surrounded in, and this belief of what I can only describe as like a high masculinity, more focused on uh, the image of the warrior, or the image of the leader who chooses themselves to be worthy of all their endeavors and all the experiences. And I think Christopher Nolan's adaptation was not focused on that perspective of image and glory and legacy and more of a physical focus, not a mental focus, but a physical focus. Christopher Nolan's adaptation, I think, had a more mental matrix of focus because of the environment we're surrounded in. And I think a lot of people have this disregard for our true environment. And I bring this up because our environment is being literally hijacked. Our reality is being altered. We're moving into this we're moving out of this natural state into this unnatural state. And what bridges the gap between natural and unnatural is, in my opinion, the disregard of the present moment. No consideration for what's actually happening. Getting lost in the details of the abstraction of your experience. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that that is the perspective that people are born into and they can't see outside of it and they're unwilling to see outside of it. It's an unwillingness, but it's also a deliberate act to force people into a reactive state, not a responsive state. And the reactive state brings out the primal, the barbaric, the hunter. Everything becomes its prey, in a sense. Everything could be its prey. And we're not hunting each other for meat or for food. It's not the hunt anymore. We don't have the need for that sort of hunt. Our hunt is for a dominating perspective that dictates us into submission. And the submission that we get dictated into or forced upon is this state of the content of our art, the content of your thoughts, the content of your expression get focused directly towards this revolutionary, rebellious state, revolting against what you're in, not identifying with it, but being surrounded by the environment. Our attention being focused on not the on not what we are entering, but what will how do I say this? Our attention is not focused on what we are entering. We're not considering what we're entering. We enter the screen first. We navigate the content second. But the navigation of the content of all expression becomes the fixated state of what I can only describe as the unnatural state of being here now, and then the unnatural side of being everywhere else.